Hi, my name is Kira, and this is Chapter 4 of Boxcar to Nowhere. Chapter 4, A Moving Prison. Jazzy returned to Hope's side from under the boxcar. He had a worried look, an embarrassed look, as he came up to her, positioning himself beside her right leg, occasionally glancing up to her face as if to apologize for leaving her alone. Hope stroked his head, then bent down to embrace his neck. "You are magnificent, Jazzy. I'm so proud." As she caressed him, the 3 policemen disappeared around the end boxcar, joining the others as they all gathered to get a good look at the captured fugitive. Hope glanced around, realizing that she and Jazzy were alone. All the voices and laughs were coming from the other side. Up the line, boxcars seemed to stretch into the distance and around the curve, obscuring the endpoint, if there even was one. Alongside the tracks, trees and bush grew closer to the cars, making it seem even more ominous and mysterious. Hope took a deep breath, the excitement of it all dissipating slowly. Her adventure was over for now, and she was going to be glad to shortly return home. She wondered if her dad would be returning with her, or was the handsome young Dave going to be the one? She felt a tug and noticed that Jazzy was standing erect and looking down the long line of boxcars. He looked back at her for a moment, then gently started pulling her down the track in the opposite direction of the gathered police force. She felt like protesting because she really didn't want to go down the lonely track, away from protection, but Jazzy seemed to be purposely heading in that direction, and she unwillingly followed along, attached by the leash in her hand. Hope could see that Jazzy was following his nose, but keeping his head high and his ears trained ahead, alert to any sounds or scents. She recalled him sniffing the garments supplied before the search started. The fugitive had been caught already, or maybe not. She for sure didn't want to track down a hostile bad man all by herself. Then she thought back on the events just before the big sliding door was pulled open. Jazzy might have been alerted to the presence of a man inside, not a scent. Were there 2 of them, after all? Could she now be pursuing the other one, the escaped one? Alarm sounded in her head. She and Jazzy were now too far from the policeman to call out, and any cries for help might just alert the man Jazzy is pursuing. What to do? Captain Martinez could see their captive locked in the back seat of a nearby cruiser. His head was down, and Martinez guessed that he was handcuffed with hands behind him. Martinez had seen the blood on his legs and arms from the dog attack earlier, but only from a distance. "Drive our prisoner to the emergency room for treatment, and then take him to the police station. Make sure he doesn't escape this time." He nodded at 4 men, easily enough to be safe. He looked around one last time. The entire train schedule had been interrupted because of this pursuit. Time to get things moving again, he thought. "Sergeant Barros," Martinez yelled, "call the local control office and tell them they can resume activity." Barros looked around at the assembly of men studying their faces. They were thinking what he was. There may be another perp nearby, the one who supplied the weapon and transportation. He had to be brought in as well. When he looked back toward the captain to raise this issue, Barros could see him getting into a patrol car. As far as the captain was concerned, the chase was now over. Barros shrugged. He would make the call as requested. Approaching the boxcar 3 down from the one which had contained the fugitive, Jazzy suddenly slowed. Hope could see his head looking not only under the cars, but up at the top of them. He seemed to have crouched a bit, though he was still moving forward, being careful not to cause any sound. Hope picked her way over the loose gravel, also trying to be as silent as possible. She realized that with her white sweater and blonde hair, she was highly visible, a target if there ever was one. She felt like running away, leaving Jazzy to handle this alone, but something inside told her that while running, she would be totally alone. Both choices were bad. She decided to stay with Jazzy, who obviously was in control and used to this. Her pet knew more about hunting criminals than she ever would. This time, the big sliding door was partially open, and Jazzy came to a stop right in front of it. His full attention focused on whatever was inside, waiting for them. Hope could feel her hands start to sweat. She wished that she never wanted this adventure or went with Dave so insolently, so confidently. The real world is indeed a frightening place. Jazzy turned to look at her for a long moment, then quickly returned to watching the dark interior of the boxcar. After a couple of repeats, Hope got the message. Jazzy wanted his leash removed. He was going inside, whether Hope wanted him to or not. Quickly reasoning it out, Hope agreed that Jazzy would act quicker without restraint of any kind. She unsnapped the leash and moved aside. Almost instantly, Jazzy made the big jump and was inside the boxcar. Hope covered her ears, expecting gunfire again. She backed away, not knowing anything else she could do. There were faint sounds of Jazzy walking back and forth inside the car. The man they sought would have been attacked by now if he was inside. Trembling, she came back to the car and peeked inside. Letting her eyes adjust to the dark interior, Jazzy was pacing, his nose to the deck, and he kept returning to one spot. That was at the foot of a steel ladder, which led to the roof opening. The man Jazzy sought must have gone up the ladder. "Jazzy, here," she called softly, wanting him to come to her and give up the chase. Once more, Jazzy circled the interior, coming to rest beneath the ladder, expectantly looking up at the closed hatch. He barked loudly in frustration, ignoring Hope's command. Reluctantly, Hope found a short ladder meant to assist climbing into the car. She had to go fetch Jazzy and put on his leash. Otherwise, he showed no willingness to give up the chase. Once in the car, she looked around, taking in all the corners, just in case. It was empty except for small piles of straw in the corners. No hiding bad men were in there, and she started to relax. She clipped the leash to Jazzy's collar and tugged him toward the door. "Come, Jazzy," she commanded. After a pause, Jazzy turned to go with her. There, in the partially open sliding door, was a man's head and shoulders. He was grinning at them. Jazzy leaped at the door, ripping the leash from Hope's hand, just as the door slammed shut, forcing Jazzy to bank off the closed door. He spun around, all teeth showing, while growling in a deep, threatening rumble. To no avail, the door was closed, and they were inside, the man outside. When she reached the door, Hope tried in vain to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The door was locked from the outside. Before she could think it out, there was a jerk and clanking from the train. It was underway, and they were trapped inside, on their way to someplace distant. It had to be Jerome Tate, who was trying to keep Jazzy from tracking him. He was definitely on the train as they all rattled into the unknown.